Darium's POV.
It's been nearly a week since Letitia and the twins left for Hades, and to say I missed them dearly would be an understatement. The palace feels lonely without them, almost like how it had been before Letitia came into my life. Which was all the more reason why I wanted to find out who was after Letitia and put an end to them. With a sigh, my attention snapped towards the door of my chancery when I heard a knock, watching it pull open and Nico walks in. Darium. I nodded after he bowed, greeting me with the utmost respect. She is here. Are you certain about this? I raised a brow. I mean, after all this months, why now? Why is she coming forward now and not when it happened? At this point, it's hard to know who to trust. We have no idea who in the palace is working with or against us. You're right about that, Nico stated, a skeptical look on his face. But I suggest we give the young maid the benefit of doubt. When I saw her yesterday, she looked frightened to the core and seemed to have worked up the courage to speak. At least we should get to listen to what she has to say. She had insisted on speaking with you and only to you directly. I run my fingers through my hair, giving a curt nod, letting him know it was okay to let the maid in. My gaze remained on Nico as he made his way back to the door, opening it. He stood there for a second or two and seemed to be saying something to the maid before stepping aside to let her in. My eyes settled on the petite form of a young girl who looked no older than 16. Her body trembled as she made her way fully into the room. Her hands were clenching onto her dress, and her eyes wandered anywhere but in my direction. Yo, Your Majesty, she stuttered, giving an awkward bow. My gaze never wavered from her quavering form. I continued to study her, not saying anything, trying to see if she could be trustworthy or not. Nico, who had come to stand beside me, leaned over to whisper in my ear. Go easy on her, you are already scaring her. And I fought the urge to roll my eyes. The emotions on my face remained blank. I heard you have something to tell me concerning the Queen's handmaid's death, is that right? Yes, Your Majesty. Why now? It's been months since it happened. Why come forth now? Her fingers clenched tightly into her dress, turning pale white. I could see the ball of sweat forming on her forehead and the fear visible in her face. I apologize for not stepping forward and letting my emotions get the best of me. She replies, still not meeting neither Nico nor my gaze. So tell me, what exactly is it you saw? I asked, my voice cold as it resounded through the room. Her gaze settled on Nico, who gave her nod of reassurance, letting her know it was okay to speak while I remained seated, feeling myself begin to lose patience at how timid she was acting. The young maid gulped, her gaze to the floor as she began speaking. I had gone back to take my washcloth, which I forgot at the meeting room that day. That was when I caught sight of a person fleeing the scene of the crime. Who was it? Who did you see? She lets out shaky breaths, her fingers letting go of her dress to fiddle against each other. The Queen's handmaid. Kiva. Silence filled the room, no one said a word. I tried making sense of what she had just said, her words resonating in my ears as I found it hard to believe. My guess is that it was the same with Nico, who stood beside me speechless. Once I was able to regain my composure, I got up from my seat, anger brewing in my eyes as I made my way to where the maid was. The more steps I took, the more she retreated back, cowering in fear. A scream leaves her lips when her body stumbles backward and hits the wall. Her back ached, her eyes pinned in mine. Your Majesty. How am I to believe a word you say to be true? I snapped, bringing my face closer, the fury in my eyes enough to make her gulp. What if this is just a ploy, blaming the Queen's handmaid to help the culprit escape? I continued. Answer me! The tears poured down her eyes as she instantly fell to the floor on both her knees, her head cast down. I swear, on the heavens, Your Majesty, I speak the truth. She sobs out. I had truly seen the Queen's second handmaid fleeing the scene. I won't dare to deceive you, my king. You're dismissed, I said after a while, hearing the sincerity in her voice. I didn't have to repeat my word as she rose to her feet, racing her way out of the room within seconds. The room was filled with silence once again, with Nico still not saying a word. My head hung up and I let out an exhale, rubbing my hands over my face and then up through my hair, clasping them on top of my head as I paced the floor. What are we going to do? I believe the maid to be telling the truth. Nico says, causing me to finally stop pacing, and I turn to look at him, dropping my arms. I still find it hard to believe that Kiva happens to have betrayed not just the kingdom but Letitia. And if this truly is true, if Kiva really had a hand in Gala's death, then that means she was also the one who poisoned Letitia and is working hand in hand with King Orin. If so, why would she go through all this length? What does she hope to gain? And more importantly, how do we tell Letitia? He asks, looking expectantly at me. I have absolutely no fucking idea. Nico. Fuck! This is so messed up. This would really break Letitia when she finds out. She has just managed to get over Gala's death. Now there was the possibility of Kiva having betrayed her. The news of this would truly hurt her, not when she adores her and considers her a dear friend. I said, taking deep breaths to control my anger. The fact that she is with Letitia and the twins right now on a Hades doesn't sit well with me. What if she tries to hurt them there? I paced back and forth, my fists clenched, feeling the weight of betrayal bearing down on me. My mind raced with questions as I tried to make sense of the situation, replaying the events that had happened over and over in my mind, trying to find cues or signs that I had missed. But the truth was, I hadn't seen it coming. It blindsided me. The anger surged through me, fueling my frustration. But despite the rage, I couldn't process the reality of the situation. I doubt she can do anything to harm them, not with Gareth and Devlin keeping an eye on them. Besides doing so, it would only make her suspicious since she is very knowledgeable as to the reason Letitia and the twins were sent to a Hades. Nico says, yet his words did nothing to calm my racing heart or lessen the worry I felt. What I can't get over is how she was able to outsmart us right from the beginning, making sure we never suspected her. Probably because she made sure not to do things that would spark any form of suspicion. Sticking to Letitia and making sure Letitia trusted her. I said, plopping down into the seat across from the desk, leaning forward, resting my elbows on my knees, and cupping my head in my hands. What is the next step, then? Nico questioned. What do you plan on doing with Kiva? I sat there and thought it over for a while before finally saying, she needs to be brought back to Nisha and questioned. Her betrayal of the kingdom won't go unpunished. Not only had she poisoned Letitia, but because of her, Letitia and I had lost a child. I plan not to go easy on her, she has to pay. I growled out, my hand clenched in a tight fist. But first, I need to set out for a Hades. I don't trust her not to hurt Letitia or the twins. Nico nods. I will have everything ready for us to leave. No, with Neith away and in Silvio, I need you to take care of the affairs of the kingdom. Very well then. He says this, giving a bow, before making his way out of the room. And all I could think about was how I was going to break this news to Letitia.
Princess Katrona seems to have lost the will to feel. She's not letting herself feel anything, the healer claims. Her body and mind are both shut down totally. We don't know how long it will take her to recover, and once she does, she will still need to come to terms with whatever transpired. So what now? How do we treat her? Devlin asked impatiently. We were currently in Devlin Chancery, talking with the healer concerning Katrona's situation. It's been hours since she fully regained consciousness and had refused to say or responded in any way. She was just lost in her own thoughts and continued to stare into empty places. We need to let her know she is safe here. Being surrounded by people who love her should help as well. Will that really help in her treatment? I asked. What if she remains trapped in her mind? What if she doesn't come out of this and it turns out to be something far worse? I think what the princess needs at this point is a hint of trust. You need to be careful when dealing with her, which requires a lot of care and patience. Judging from how she has shut off the world, it is not going to be easy to build her trust. You can talk to her, it helps. She might not react, but I believe she is able to hear what you have to say. So we just need to make her feel comfortable around us and be patient till she is ready to talk. Devlin asked once again, and the healer nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. She is still asleep and only woke up a couple of times, but I don't think she is able to stomach any solid food. She refuses to eat. I stated. Her personal maid seems to be having trouble getting her to eat anything. I could brew up some tonic to help with her nutrition, but at some point the princess needs to have solid food. Your Majesty and Queen Sviatoslavic need to work on getting the princess to eat. Devlin and I both let out a sigh, knowing it would be difficult to do that. I take deep breaths before speaking again. What about Afra? The Lady Afra is still the same and hasn't regained any of her memories yet. Just like the Princess Katrona, it's hard to determine when she will regain her memories. It all depends on the Lady Afra. So she is going to be in this childlike state till she is ready to come out of it? Devlin asks with a raised eyebrow. Yes, Your Majesty. Keep an eye on Afra for a while. Let me know if there are any changes in her condition. Yes, Your Majesty. The healer bows, making his way out of the chancery, leaving Devlin and me alone. Everything just seems to be never-ending right now. I muttered with a sigh. Tell me about it, Devlin says, using his hand to rub the back of his neck. He took a deep breath before getting up from his seat. I need to go check on Minerva. She wasn't able to get much sleep last night. How is she? The pregnancy seems to be taking a toll on her, he answered wearily, a hint of dejection in his eyes. I'm certain it will all work out, I know it. He smiles, giving a nod. I will check up on her later. We both made our way out of the chancery, with Devlin heading towards his chamber while I headed towards Katrona's. I find the maid sitting on the chair beside the bed. She was saying something to her, but Katrona remained looking out the window, not moving a muscle. I couldn't see her reaction as she was facing the other way, but I could imagine her emotionless face. Has she eaten anything? The maid shook her head. Of course. I shouldn't be expecting too much from her tonight. Hopefully she would next day. I then signaled for the maid to leave. She adjusted the pillow behind Katrona's head and made sure her back was comfortable in that position. After the maid left, I walked around the bed and sat on the chair. She was still blankly looking out the window. There was nothing to see. It was dark outside, late at night, but her eyes never left the window. I then moved my chair and sat in front of her, blocking her view. Her eyes fixed themselves behind me, never once looking at me. I crossed my hands to my chest, letting out a sigh. Are you in any pain? I was met with silence. Why are you refusing to eat? You need something in your stomach to be able to regain your strength. Do you have anything in particular you want to eat? I can have the head maid prepare it for you. No words, no single reply, no reaction. I need to be patient. I muttered to myself, putting on a smile. Why don't you rest up then? It's already dark outside. I forced her to lie down by gently pushing her body down onto the mattress. The pillows once more, raising the comforter to her shoulders. The best course of action for her would be to rest and recover if she wasn't going to give any reaction. Go to sleep, I'll be here when you wake up. But she didn't shut her eyes. They kept their expressionless gazes fixed on the ceiling this time. I can't recall how long I waited for her to fall asleep, but she resisted. She did nothing but gaze upward. I started stroking the sides of her temple in the hopes that it would help her relax and go to sleep because I had no idea what to do next. Her eyelids began to droop as I continued to rub her head for a few minutes. They repeatedly opened and closed. By the second, she was falling asleep. She finally closed her eyes as my fingers started to move more slowly. Her breathing became more sluggish as she turned to face me. I gave her a few more seconds to ease into it. With the scroll of my parents in my arms, I laid on the couch in the secret room, somehow finding comfort in being here. Things have seriously been hectic in the palace. Being here feels like a way of escape, and for some reason, I felt like I was in the presence of my mother, Princess Alina. Every part of this room had a touch of her, giving me a glimpse of who she might have been when she was alive. It was full of warmth and love. Letitia. I reluctantly let go of the scroll, turning to look at Devlin. I knew I would find you here. He smiles, making his way in. It's somewhat peaceful being here. It is, isn't it? Devlin responded before letting out a sigh. What is it? He had a look of concern plastered across his face. Kiva told me you had not rested since yesterday, he says grimly. He was dressed in yesterday's clothing, and I could see dark circles under his eyes that were similar to mine. I have rested plenty enough, Devlin. With that, I picked up the scroll, neatly folding it and placing it back on the table. I'm going to check on Kaytrona. I heard a sound, almost like a growl, that I was very familiar with. But I was so exhausted that my movement was a second too slow to stop Devlin from taking a hold of my hand and pulling me up and out of the little room in the library. Where exactly are we going? I believe Kaytrona's room is in the other direction. I said this when he led us in the opposite direction from her chamber. I know you wish to be of help to her, but she has more than enough people caring for her, he says sternly. Devlin! I said it in frustration and realized in horror that I was going to cry. You need to rest. You watching over her constantly won't change what happened or help soothe the pain. You don't seem to have time for yourself, taking care of the twins and Kaytrona while worrying about Darium. Tiring yourself out isn't going to do much good. At this point, you might end up falling sick. I sighed, too tired to say anything. My head felt heavy, and I could hardly muster any energy to move. There was not even enough energy for me to think. I just let him drag me down the hallway till we got to the door of my bedchamber. Devlin opened the door, leading me into the room. His hand still held mine as he dragged me towards my bed, pulling down the quilt for me to get under. The minute my body hit the bed, I felt my eyes slowly begin to close. Devlin leans in a little, helping to remove my crown and pins in my hair, freeing my hair from the tight bun before moving to remove my footwear. Thank you. I mumbled tiredly. Sleep, he said firmly, and I had to smile. Being here in the Hades had truly helped with Devlin and my relationship. We have grown really close to each other than before, and I can't help but admit liking the fact that he cares and worries for me, showering me with all his love and care while making up for all the times he wasn't able to. It felt nice to see him act like a big brother towards me. Stop thinking and sleep. I can hear your brain working. I let out a soft chuckle. Yeah, right. After a while, I turned to face him. You should have a rest as well, you look tired. You don't have to worry about me, I plan on having an eye shot, even if it's for an hour or two. At this point, I'm too tired to do anything or think, my brain is all jumbled up. He laughs, running his hand through his hair as he lets out a fatigued breath. Now stop talking. Go to sleep or I have to knock you unconscious, he threatened. We both know you won't do that, I say groggily, my eyes shut close, and I find myself drifting off to sleep. I wasn't sure for how long I slept, but when I woke up, it was already dark outside, letting me know it was nighttime. I let out a soft yawn, feeling well rested, before slowly making my way out of bed to check on the twins, Devlin and Kaytrona. I stood close to the window of the Kaytrona room. It was the evening after my nap, and we were trying to get Kaytrona to eat. The maid attending to her sat on her bed with a tray of food placed on a mini table that was also placed on the bed in front of her. Kaytrona wasn't eating anything, and I knew the healer said it would take some time for her to be herself again, not after everything she had been through. But how was she supposed to get back to health if she refused to have anything? I sighed at this, taking in how small and frail she looked. Her cheekbones and collarbones were protruding. At this point, I had no idea what to do. It was the same with Devlin. We've both been trying to come up with an idea to get her to feel comfortable or even utter a word, but she still refused to say anything or feel anything. We had tried bringing Afra and Kaytrona together in the hopes of juggling Afra's memory while hoping to get a reaction from Kaytrona. But Afra had thrown a tantrum, refusing to leave her chamber, making everything 10 times more difficult. Devlin, on the other hand, couldn't be as much help as he wanted to, not when he had other matters to attend to, one pertaining to the affairs of the kingdom, which makes him constantly busy. My attention settled on the maid attending to Kaytrona, who keeps trying and failing miserably to get her to eat, while the later just stared blankly at the wall by her left, not giving any attention to the maid or the food. Princess Kaytrona, you need to eat to regain your strength. The maid says it with a hint of sadness in her tone. Yet every word said fell on deaf ears. She was going to feed her again when I held her hand, stopping her. I shake my head, letting her know she didn't have to go on forcing Kaytrona to eat when clearly she wasn't going to. nudging my head to the door, dismissing the maid. The maid got to her feet, picked up the tray, and bowed before making her way out of the room. My gaze remained on Katrona, who still stared on the wall to her left. Even when I held her hands and soothed her, she remained unmoving. Her eyes were hollow and lifeless. It pained me to see her like this. Nobody deserved this, absolutely nobody. The door to Katrona's chamber pulls open, and the healer walks in, giving a small bow before making his way towards us. "I'm here to check on the princess's health," he states, and I give him the go-ahead. He walks over to the other side of the bed, taking a hold of her hand as he checks her pulse. Then he proceeded to move his hand to her neck, and before we knew what was happening, Katrona flinched away, quickly retreated backwards as quick as possible, slamming her head forcefully against the headboard in the process. "The heavens!" I stood up and reached for her, but she scrambled away, kicking the small table that remained on the bed in the process. I hurriedly moved the table before she could hurt herself. The healer, who had come to check in on her, was quick to move aside, putting as much distance between him and her as possible. I wasn't sure what about him could cause her to act this way, since he had been here a few times during the cause of her waking up. As much as I wanted to find what triggered her trauma, I also needed to make sure she was calm before she ended up hurting herself or causing her injury to open. It was still fresh, and I didn't want it to be bleeding again. "Katrona, it's okay, no one is going to hurt you," I said softly, slowly walking towards her. She kept on watching the healer, who appeared surprised by her response to him. She cried out loudly and continued to sob as hard as she could while keeping her eyes fixed on the man. I felt the panic grow in me, especially when she started hitting the side of her head rather harshly. Her scream never ceases. Turning to look at the healer, I nudged my head towards the door, and he was quick to leave without saying a word as he raced out of the room, knowing his presence would only do more harm than good. I approached Katrona and grabbed hold of her hands to stop her from harming herself any further before pulling her into a tight hug so that she was unable to escape. She struggled desperately to get free of my hold, but her frail body made it impossible. After some time, she started to relax, and her breath began to even out before her head fell back, losing consciousness once again.